I don't believe that Dopamine is going to produce a huge moment for Normani. I don't think that it's going to be this like, runaway hit that everyone just falls in love with and all the hate just stops. Unfortunately, I'm not that optimistic. What is up, you guys? This is Kevin Ortega-Rojas. I am a content creator, podcaster, and host. I have a show here on YouTube called Here's Why with Kevin Ortega-Rojas. I also co-host a podcast called By Latin Men, the podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Kevin Ortega-Rojas. There, I post social, political, and pop culture commentary. That is enough of an intro, though. Today is Dopamine Day, and we are going to talk about Normani and why everyone is criticizing this album rollout, why everyone has such high expectations but such negative criticisms, and why I think that how this debut album performs ultimately will not matter. For those of you who do not know, I will briefly run through who Normani is. Some of you may know her as the girl who did Motivation or the girl who did Wild Side, but Normani has had a really great career and people really love to downplay her. Normani was a member of the girl group Fifth Harmony who started on X Factor. They rose to fame with singles like Worth It and Work From Home. The group disbanded in 2017, and while in the group, Normani began her solo career endeavors. Her first one was Love Lies, a duet with the artist Khalid, and she performed at the American Music Awards, which was a breakout moment for her. Once the group disbanded, Normani released an EP with Calvin Harris. Then after that, she was invited to perform at Title X Brooklyn. So Normani's first solo performance was in a huge arena where she had the stage to herself. There she performed all of her songs, including a soon-to-be-released single called Waves. She released that soon after that performance. Then in January, she released a duet with Sam Smith called Dancing with a Stranger, which was another hit for her. It also went #1 on pop radio and was the most played song on radio that year. Then in July, while she was on tour with Ariana Grande on the Sweetener World Tour, Normani released her single Motivation, which was technically her first solo single. Motivation came with a viral music video that was beloved by so many people and really set the bar for Normani. The following month, she won a VMA for Best R&B Performance for her song Waves, and she also performed at the VMAs. Then after this, Normani appeared on the Birds of Prey soundtrack alongside Megan Thee Stallion on a record called Diamonds. Following that, she was on another soundtrack for the Charlie's Angels movie with Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj on a song called Bad to You. Then between this and her next single follow-up, she was featured on songs with Kehlani and Quavo. Normani's performance on that song with Quavo is my favorite vocal performance of hers. Her voice sounds like butter. If you have never heard Swing, you need to listen to it. It is such a good song. Then at the end of 2021, Normani released her single Wild Side, which was a huge moment for her. It featured Cardi B and was seen as her next big thing following Motivation. But as I just walked you through, she was releasing music between Motivation and Wild Side. It's just they were not huge moments. They weren't huge singles, but she was putting out music. She was, creating work that fans of hers were able to enjoy. Wild Side was a viral hit. It came with a dance challenge. It was followed up with a VMA performance, a Savage X Fenty fashion show performance. Wild Side was playing all the time, everywhere, and was a very big hit for Normani. Then in February, Normani followed up Wild Side with the single Fair. I really loved Fair. I really think that it is a solid R&B record, but unfortunately, it seemed like Normani's label RCA, which you'll see in this video, is a pattern. It did not believe in the record. It was supposed to come with a music video. Unfortunately, the video was scrapped, and Fair just did not do what Normani had hoped it would do. It didn't bring the attention that the label was hoping for. So it felt like after that, Normani took a very big pause, because even when Fair came out, Normani started teasing Candy Paint, which was a single that everyone was waiting for. And I think the issue with Fair was that Wild Side was such a big, pop R&B moment for Normani, and everyone expected her to continue that, but she wanted to do something different, which I think was a good choice for her to prove that she could put out a ballad R&B record, that she could carry an R&B song on her own, and I think she did that. I think that her performance on, I believe, Jimmy Kimmel was a beautiful performance. I loved it. Yeah, y'all, I don't know why everyone hated Fair so much, but I think it's a great record. Following Fair, Normani was on Calvin Harris's album alongside Tinashe and Quavo. Was it Quavo? One of the Migos. I think it might have been Offset, or maybe it was Quavo. I don't know. Whoever it was Ty Dolla Sign. I don't remember. But she was on a record with Tinashe and Calvin Harris, which I loved. That was called New to You. And then following that, Normani really went silent, which, you know, a lot of people seem to say is a pattern of hers. She releases music and then she sort of disappears, right? Normani finally announced her album Dopamine. Is it a typical rollout? No. Normani announced the album in February with the artwork and the title, but she didn't give us a date. Then a month later, she finally gave us the release date. She announced the first single, 159, which came out in April, and then the follow-up to 159, Candy Paint, which people have been asking for over 2 years, came out in May on her birthday, May 31st. So a lot of people have been giving Normani a lot of flack, giving her a lot of heat and hate online for the album rollout, for how long this album took to come out. I think that people really underestimate the pressure that Normani is under. She's told us before that this is her debut album and she can never get her debut album back. Now, my opinion is debut albums don't really matter as much as people think that they do, but I'll get to that later. Normani has talked about the fact that, you know, she only has one debut album and she wants to get it right. On top of that, she's dealt with a lot of personal issues. Both of her parents were diagnosed with cancer at the same time. Normani took a break from working on her album to, you know, nurse her parents and be there with her family. But it's not like she wasn't making music this whole time. You know, people love to say like Normani has 2 songs. Well, first of all, publicly, you know, released records, Normani has about 15 songs. But also, Normani has made a lot of music, and I have most of it. I believe that I have Normani's entire first original album. Like, what the album was supposed to be, I have it. And Normani has not made a bad song. I'm going to say that right now. She has not. But Normani gets a lot of hate. She gets a lot of hate online. And I think that people, you know, look at her not promoting heavily on social media, not tweeting, not engaging with fans. And they're just like, well, where are you? You know, you need to show up. People demanding that Normani show up in a way that makes them happy, that satisfies them. But they're completely divorcing that from Normani and her experiences with fame and being, you know, hated online for absolutely no reason. When Normani was in Fifth Harmony, she was treated terribly by fans. She did not receive the same love and affection as her non-black bandmates. And then toward the end of the group's time together, Normani was constantly getting hate online, you know, dealing with racist trolls on Twitter, all because they thought that Normani didn't like Camila. And so people thought that it was all right to, you know, draw images of Normani with a noose around her neck and, you know, Photoshop Normani's face onto monkeys and, you know, just really do some vile things to her. And so Normani has told us before, she does not feel safe online. She does not use social media. She is not online. She is not looking at comments. She is not posting herself. Anything that we see posted online, it is not Normani. It is her team. She does not show up. She does not want to be here. She doesn't want to talk to people because she doesn't want to disrupt her own peace and she wants to protect her mental health. And I think that that is completely fair. You know, there was a time and place where artists were able to promote projects without having to be in our face. Social media is new. Like, the music industry is not new. People have been selling albums and selling records without social media for decades upon decades. And just because it is the norm now doesn't mean that it is the only way to sell music. I don't think that that's true. I think that people need to give Normani some grace. And I think that people who are saying that this rollout is lazy or that there is no rollout are just not paying attention, because ever since Normani released her first single 159, she has been consistently promoting this album, from her social media accounts to all of her video interviews with, you know, Cosmopolitan and Allure and Who What Where, and, you know, she's doing interviews with Rolling Stone and BuzzFeed and Dazed Magazine, and she's on magazine covers, and she's, you know, releasing her singles. She released a very high quality trailer for the album. She did a listening party for her fans, and everything down from the sound to the styling to the hair, everything has been so consistent. There is clearly a vision here. She's clearly trying to build an era here. She's trying to make Dopamine a moment, and I think that people aren't seeing it because they want so badly for her to bend over backwards and do the things that they're demanding that she do. And she's not going to do that, which I'm happy about. For the last couple days, everyone's been bitching and moaning about the fact that we didn't have a track list. And I wasn't sure why people were so upset about that. Like, again, 15 years ago, we weren't seeing track lists to albums. We heard that an album was coming, and we saw it for the first time the day that we bought it at Circuit City, or wherever you bought your albums. I bought my first album at Circuit City. Normani is a girl who obviously loves nostalgia in the early 2000s, and I think that her promoting her album off social media, doing the press, doing the interviews, not releasing a track list until everyone pressured her to, I think that it's very intentional. For people who are saying that there are no visuals to the album, I think that Normani has shown us that she is a visual artist first and foremost. And so I do believe that the point of releasing the singles without a visual was to keep everyone anticipating the album, because the visuals will come with the album. In general, I just think that people need to trust her. Like, I trust Normani. I trust that she's had a vision. She's been working at this for years. All the music that I heard has been really great music. She has really great songs that unfortunately are not on the album because we've seen the track list, but Ocean Club and Black Woman and Time Waster, like, Normani has some really, really, really good music. And so I'm going to trust her with her album. It is her album. I don't believe that Dopamine is going to produce a huge moment for Normani. I don't think that it's going to be this, like, runaway hit that everyone just falls in love with and all the hate just stops. Unfortunately, I'm not that optimistic. So I don't think that this album is just going to win everyone over. I think that Normani needs to accept that she's not going to make everyone happy. And I think that fans of Normani need to be okay with everyone not loving this music. Like, it's not for everyone. If you enjoy it, then buy it, support her, buy tickets when she announces the tour, like, show up for her, enjoy the art. But it's not supposed to be for everyone. Everything is not for everyone. I think that Normani should focus on building up her core fan base with this first album. Do the performances, share the visuals, engage with your fans as best you can, do the interviews, open up, let us fall in love with this project, go on tour, and take it from there. I don't think that debut albums matter as much as people think that they do. There are artists, of course, who knock it out the park and get a runaway hit with their first debut album. Of course, we can talk about Beyonce, who is another Black artist who came out of a girl group. Beyonce has not had a bad day. Beyonce has done nothing but deliver hits and top-selling albums since she was in Destiny's Child. But that is not the reality for every artist. There are a ton of artists who release music and have to work their way up to, superstar, pop star status. And that's okay. I don't know where Stan Twitter has taken us, that we believe that people need to knock it out the gate on the first try, that people need to be delivering, 500,000 units on the first week for their debut album. That is not realistic. It is just not. That is not what happens for everyone. Some people need to work up to it, and that is okay. So I have a list of artists who may have had big hits or may have had a hit with their debut album, but their breakthrough moment, their big pop, didn't happen until later in their career. Janet Jackson's first album, Aaliyah's first album, Rihanna's first album, Usher, Doja Cat, Ariana, Tinashe, Dua Lipa, even Sabrina Carpenter. All of these artists, may have been releasing music, may have put out albums before, but their big, huge moment didn't come until later in their career. Their first albums, what they did was build them up a fan base. I've been listening to Doja Cat for years. I bought Amala. I went to see Doja Cat perform. I saw her in smaller venues, but she worked her way up. And then Hot Pink was this big moment. And then Planet Her was just this gigantic moment. Usher, with My Way, Usher was out there and putting out music and having big moments and was really building up a core fan base. And then Confessions came and he was just a global phenomenon. Ariana Grande, I'm an Ariana stan, but her first albums were cute. They were good first albums. Yours Truly, My Everything, those are good albums. Dangerous Woman was, a moment for her. But Sweetener was lightning in a bottle. And then Thank You Next really cemented her. Tinashe had 2 on her debut album, her like official debut album, Aquarius, which was a hit. But then she just became the 2 girl, and the same label that Normani is signed to now played games with Tinashe's career for years and shelved her. RCA sent Tinashe out on a promotional tour for an album that she had already announced, and then they sold her title track to Rihanna. And then they shelved Tinashe for like 2 years until she finally was able to release her follow-up album. Dua Lipa, again, her first album, people loved her. I saw people talking about Dua Lipa for years, but she didn't have a big, huge moment until Future Nostalgia. Sabrina Carpenter right now is having a huge year. I cannot stop listening to Espresso. But this is her 6th album. Like, she's been making music for years and years and years, and she is just now having a huge moment. But what all of these artists did over the years was build up their core fan base. They focused on making high quality music, delivering good work, engaging with their fans, going on tour, and then eventually everyone paid attention. I think that as much as Normani trends every day on Twitter, whenever she posts a picture, as much hate as she gets, all the attention that she gets, all the blogs that post about her, I don't think that that is going to result in like a huge debut album with a ton of hits. I think that it's going to be a moment for Normani and her core audience to enjoy, to celebrate the fact that she finally got to put out her debut album. And I trust her to take it from there. Alright guys, that is all the time I have for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Does a debut album matter as much as people think it does? Or is an artist able to break through later in their career? Let me know your thoughts. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and I will see you next time. Take care. Love you. Bye.